Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I've been a relationship expert for about 40 years. I'm a life and relationship coach, and I'm the director and founder of Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. As a self-expert, I want to talk about how the self operates within relationship systems today. And this video is entitled Enmeshment. Too much togetherness. Enmeshment is a term that a lot of people ask about and wonder, what does that mean? That over closeness experience that we have in relationships. And one of these key concepts is that too much togetherness concept of enmeshment. Let me give you some definitions of enmeshment. Enmeshment is a description of a relationship between two or more people in which personal boundaries are permeable and unclear. When we're very unwell defined, we're more likely to get enmeshed in relationships. We grow up in our family of origin being undefined and non-defined and dependent. And of course, the progress of growth is to move beyond that enmeshment and to move into independence or interdependence as we get older as adults. Well, many of us don't develop in that way. In fact, most people don't. And to become full, mature adults. And just because we reach an adult age doesn't mean we're an adult inside in our emotional field or our emotional systems. And so to heal, to feel more calm, to be able to relate to others in a self-differentiated way, we work on and work through our enmeshment we have with family of origin, and as that continues to play out in other relationships as well. This often happens on an emotional level, this enmeshment, in which two people feel each other's emotions, or when one person becomes emotionally escalated and the other family member does as well. When we have that escalation between two people emotionally, oftentimes there is enmeshment. Self-differentiation is the circuit breaker that breaks that escalation between two people. The other person continues to escalate, but we don't. And there's a circuit breaker called self. And having a self and self-centered and a well-defined self, we don't get as triggered and we don't come up as anxious with other people. Too much togetherness and too limited separateness in a relationship equals enmeshment. A relationship in which two or more people experience non-well-defined selves and their emotional lives overlap. All relationships have a we-self experience. In other words, there's a we-ness and then there's a selfness. If we have too little selfness and too much we-ness, then we're enmeshed. And so that lack of selfness is what we need to address to break the bonds and the cord of enmeshment. In a family systems approach, understand that there are two forces at work in all relationships at all times. These two forces are always at work: togetherness and separateness. I-ness and we-ness is always at work in any relationship. Once we begin to become aware of this and see this working, we're then more surgically able to make changes in our lives to not get caught in the trap of the we-ness with too little I-ness. Often being different from another is equated with being autonomous. We'll say, well, I'm just different from you, so therefore I'm autonomous or separate from you. No, just being different doesn't mean there's not enmeshment. For example, if let's say in an alcoholic home, a child grows up in an alcoholic home and they decide, I'm going to hate alcohol, never drink alcohol, and I'm always going to have an anti-alcohol view of the world and myself. While that may be wise, because genetically it could be a problem for someone who's an adult child of an alcoholic to drink, because they have much higher chance of becoming alcoholic, that what happens is, because we are so different, in other words, I'm so opposed to alcohol, it's actually an anti-parent state that we're in. So we're very different, but we're not very autonomous. We're not ourselves. We're not neutral. We are in a reaction to something that went on in our family of origin. Another experience of enmeshment, Bowen says, Murray Bowen, grandfather of family systems and family therapy, while to some extent each person is attempting to control how others think and act, each is simultaneously fighting against the other's attempt to control or influence him. And this may be conscious or unconscious. And that's where that enmeshment comes in. When we have that unspoken, maybe even unaware objective of, I want to change you, you want to change me. I want to control you, you want to control me. Then we know enmeshment is at work. And often you will find that so readily in family of origins, even for those who are adults and feel they're mature, they're still very enmeshed with their family of origin. And then whatever happens in our family of origin happens within us, and then we carry it out into our adult relationships. And too much of this togetherness creates enmeshment. So what are some of the symptoms of enmeshment? And this is not an exhaustive video on enmeshment, but I want to give you some ideas of how to think about when enmeshment is occurring. Number one, sharing that super self with the family of origin is a good indicator that we are enmeshed. In other words, there's just that clumping that we have of where we're a part of the family of origin and we share one super self. Or let's say even within a marriage, you can have a super self. Rather than a self and a self, you have this big super self and we're just a part of it. That will indicate enmeshment. Reactivity indicates enmeshment. In other words, if we become reactive rather than responsive, say, ooh, there must be enmeshment at work. Worry, a loss about objectivity. We lose our objectivity. Oftentimes we get we fall into the relationship system that we have between each other and we lose our objectivity. That's enmeshment. We feel threatened consciously or unconsciously. And that's difficult to learn, but you can learn to identify, I'm feeling threatened, I feel fearful. When we have those kind of experiences in relationship, there's probably enmeshment going on. Avoidance is another indicator of enmeshment. If someone's unhappy with their family of origin, let's say they go, I'm going to move to the other side of the country so I don't have to deal with my parents. That's avoidance. The problem is they're still enmeshed even though they've moved to the other side of the country. Because the enmeshment's in here and no amount of geography or miles is going to affect that. So is it possible to live 10 miles from your family and reduce your enmeshment? Yes. You can live 2,000 miles from your family and still be very, very enmeshed with them. You're just avoiding them. Blaming is another indicator of enmeshment. We tend to bind or reduce our anxiety by becoming close. For example, compliance or peacemaking to relieve others and our anxiety. But what happens when we become peacemakers is we absorb the anxiety of the relationship. We absorb it. And that's a part of that enmeshment process within family, within the relationship. Advice giving, especially advice that's not being asked. And even when I work with clients, one of the things that I am very careful about is I don't want to answer questions they're not asking. because I want to respect them and I want to value them. Now, if I feel there's something that might be helpful for them to know, I certainly will share it because we have this advice-giving relationship. But in my own personal relationships, I try to withhold that advice-giving because that is an indicator of enmeshment, and they're not asking me for my opinion. Appealing to role is another indicator of enmeshment. Well, I'm your mother, which means you're my son, or you're my daughter, or you're my... That's an appealing to role as the role you play in the relationship. That's often an indicator of enmeshment. Reactive anger. Anger many times has to do with enmeshment, because if we weren't enmeshed, if we were more disconnected inside, we wouldn't get so angry and wouldn't need to. But we get pinged, and that pinging is a part of enmeshment. Assumptive mind and emotional reading. I'll give you some examples here in a moment. Where we mind read, we emotion read, and they read us and they read our minds or say what they think we believe or what we're feeling. That's an enmeshment dynamic. Abuse certainly is enmeshment. Controlling is certainly enmeshment. Over seriousness is also indicates that there's too much closeness. When we become over serious about the relationship, we want to stay more flexible and lighter and neutral. That will help us in reducing that enmeshment. When we obsess about somebody or obsess about a relationship, that's enmeshment. And that's why we've said many times, is it love or is it addiction? Because we obsess about a relationship. Remember, that equals enmeshment. Disrespect equals enmeshment. Why would I need to disrespect someone? Why would they need to disrespect me? Because there's over closeness going on. Boundary busting, not valuing boundaries. That's enmeshment. Bullying is an example of enmeshment. Triangulation is enmeshment at work. Love bombing, gaslighting, mind reading, as I've said before, all of those are a part of this enmeshment process. Now, why so many people want me to help them with all of those traits I just mentioned or all those symptoms? I like to get to the root of it and deal with enmeshment within us. That's going to help far more than if I just say, okay, let's just simply deal with the triangle. Let's deal with your enmeshment, which will help us deal with the triangle. Well, help me to stop obsessing, they might say. Well, let's deal with your enmeshment issues from family of origin and within you. You probably will then obsess less. So enmeshment's that underlying, that over closeness is kind of the underlying problem. Now, here's some statements that reflect enmeshment. If you knew what was good for you, ... Well, that's unwelcome advice giving. That's enmeshment. I'm your mother. That's appealing to role. You can do X, you just don't want to. That's mind reading, if someone's sharing that with you. If you would just accept the way things are, then ... That's control. Mary told me you were mad at her. That's triangulating, and that feels enmeshing between the person talking to me and Mary. So when someone says something like that, we, the parents, won't communicate with you until your husband apologizes to us. I have clients right now who have that kind of a problem, and that's avoidance. We're so enmeshed with you that we're going to avoid you because we feel hurt or you're not doing what we think you should do. And so the parents withdraw from the daughter and son-in-law because your husband won't apologize to us. And it's over nothing. It's over a manufactured problem, not even a real offense. Parents send inappropriate gifts, money, after being repeatedly asked not to. And again, boundary breaking. When you have boundary breaking, there's enmeshment. Honey, you are just codependent, and that's why we're arguing. Well, that's diagnosing. that's another part of enmeshment when we do the diagnosing. My parents were perfect growing up and my childhood couldn't have been better. That's idealizing, and that's also an enmeshment indicator. Because why can't we talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of our family growing up? And when I ask clients about their families, I'm not looking to put their families down or criticize their families or blame their families, but they'll feel protective of their families and won't want to reveal the weaknesses. That indicates to me enmeshment. So you can over-idealize, or you can also over-criticize. And those that come and talk about their horrible childhood, I'll say, well, what were the positive? What were the positive experiences you had growing up? Tell me some strengths of both your mother and father. I'm not denying the abuse. I'm not denying the difficulties or problems. But when we see people as a whole, we're less likely to be enmeshed. When we see them as parts and only focus in on the parts, we're more likely enmeshing. I need you to understand, ... That's the pushing to change others, or them pushing to change you. I need you to understand. I need you to stop expecting me to. I need you to. When we do that, then we have enmeshment. You're making too big a deal about this. Well, that's imposing their agenda or their paradigm. And it's also mind reading. And it's also pushing and pulling in that respect, that I'm making too big a deal out of this. Well, maybe I'm making just the right amount of deal out of this. Or it's possible we could be pinging each other and you have to under make a big deal out of it and I have to over make a big deal out of it. Again, enmeshment. Some recent ones are like, I just heard, well, you sound like you just need to pray about that more. And again, that's someone trying to change someone else. Obviously, you're wrong, so you just need to pray about that or see what God would tell you about that. And there's a lot of religious enmeshment type of things. I think even someone coming up to me and saying, "Are you saved?" is an enmeshment statement. There may be a good place for witnessing or evangelizing, but what happens is it often ends up being an enmeshment experience rather than a healthy experience of religion or spirituality. So how do we move out of enmeshment and into self-differentiation? And again, self-differentiation is the circuit breaker that breaks the enmeshment. Well, one, we begin to shift from absorber to observer. This helps us get outside the push or pull of the relationship enmeshment. That's not easy to do, but it's very important that we begin to be an observer, not an absorber. Stop the mission to change others. When you're on a mission to change others, then you are enmeshed. Focus on regulating your anxiety in relationships, self-soothing, regulating your emotions, and learn and work on becoming more calm. And there is a way to do that and to practice that. And I help as a self-expert, I help clients to do that. Begin the work of becoming more aware of how yourself and how you operate in emotional systems and in relationship systems. Not only becoming more aware of you, but how you function in this relationship. Many people haven't had a lot of learning training or about how to do that because we didn't learn that growing up as kids. Start the hard work of being yourself. Begin to take I positions or declaring self. That I've thought about this is what I'm aware of, this is what I'd like, and I begin to state and take an I position on something within the family, within the relationship, within the marriage, at work. We begin to take an I position. Not a you need to change position or you need to fully accept my position, but taking this is my position. I understand how you feel, but this is how I feel. I'm not trying to change you, but this is how I feel, this is what I believe. Give up what you're buying in trade-offs for your no self position in the relationships. So in other words, by us giving up ourself, we buy something from the relationship. Peacemaking, lowered anxiety. If I can help people work through greater anxiety and be able to continue persistent to be themselves, even though they allow the anxiety to go up, eventually it will start going down. And we buy that by giving in, complying, peacemaking, and we buy, we might also buy, okay, then I won't feel guilty. Or I'm going to give in so that they won't be mad at me because I can't stand them being mad at me. And I always go, well, why can't you stand them being mad at you? They've been mad at you for the last 35 years. Why are you afraid of them being mad at you now? It's always happened. It always will happen. And even if you buy a short-term relief from that, it's going to happen again. So how about we work on that and begin to work through that? Choose or define the relationship you want with them, given who they are and believing they won't change. This is who they are. They're not going to change. Now, what kind of relationship do you want to have with them? What do you want to do with them? That's self-defining. You're deciding what kind of relationship you want to have with them. And it may be, I only want to send cards to them every year. It may be, I only want to see them every 3 months. It may be, I only want to see them in public, where we can't get into big rows and arguments or whatever. I can define what kind of relationship I want to have with them by my boundaries. Work on detachment, neutrality, and separateness inside. 12-step work is helpful here. Al-Anon has been working on that with those who have lived family members of alcoholics for decades and decades. We work a 12-step program where we are not in control of the alcoholic or addict. We're not in control of other people's lives. And we can only control our part of the relationship. And we want to learn to function outside the emotional relationship process. Rather than just doing the pinging, I want to step outside and begin to operate out here rather than just in the pinging part. Learn more about systems thinking so you can zoom out and see more of what's going on. There are some good books that can help you, like Jenny Brown, Growing Yourself Up, Harriet Lerner's books, The Dance of Anger, The Dance of Intimacy, Roberta Gilbert, Extraordinary Relationships, her book. There's lots of books that will help begin to change how you feel in here by what you're seeing, by what they help you to see. Become aware and manage the togetherness and separateness forces in your relationship. Start to become aware of that separateness and togetherness, and going, gosh, am I experiencing too much separateness? Am I experiencing too much togetherness right now? I need to become more aware of this, and what's the push-pull going on here? With regard to enmeshment, we often need to feel less and think more. I'm not against feelings. I work with people and their feelings all of the time. And in fact, if you really want to find out what you're really feeling, think more and feel less. You're going to discover more of your real feelings rather than just what I call systems feelings, which is just the pinging back and forth. Just like there are 6 different types of guilt, one of the guilt is family of origin guilt, or that super self guilt in the family. That's not real guilt. That's the family guilt. That's not a real guilt of yours. Now, we really experience it. I understand that. But that's not real guilt. That's imposed guilt. And we want to work on that. Stay out of others' heads and feelings. And for those who are enmeshed, remember, distance will equal more closeness and more authenticity and more genuineness. So when we have more detachment, we actually can relate to people in a real, genuine, authentic way. That's more closeness. Well, I could go on for a long, long time, but I don't want to have you fall asleep on me. This is kind of an introduction to kind of enmeshment. I hope the video has been a help to you today. I hope you'll contact me. If you go to my website, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. You can send me your email address. I'll put you on the mailing list. I hope you'll join my Facebook page of the same name. Join this YouTube channel with the same name up there. I want to thank you very much for watching today, and have a great day.